welcome to the Great Canadian Gun Review. We're down here in the bunker, and today we just want to talk about our H&K USP. This one is calibered in .40. So to get started, we'll just verify this gun is in safe condition so that we can review it. This is an ambidextrous mag release, so you can do it on either side of the weapon, either on this side or this side. It doesn't really matter. And of course the mag is empty. Of course, no naughty fingers, nothing on the trigger, and we'll just slide it forward, and you can see there's nothing in the barrel or in the chamber, and we're good to go. We'll just decock it just for now, and we'll leave it in a safe position. So, a little bit of history behind it. The USP is more or less a second-generation weapon from H&K, from the original VP70, which stands for Volk Pistole 70, which was created in 1970. It was actually the first polymer-based weapon created 12 years before Glock did, actually. I know a lot of people, they like to think that Glock was the original polymer gun, and in fact it wasn't, not by a long ways. Heckler & Koch really pioneered in that area. But Glock, through movies and such, really they really got a hold of the market, and everyone's Glock, Glock, Glock. But really, the beginning started for the polymer gun with Heckler & Koch. But moving along, the USP, standing for Universal Self-Loading Pistol, was designed to go after the police market in, I believe, '89 to '91. And it was successful in some areas, but not in others. I know they were trying to go after the FBI market. Glock won that out with the Glock 23. But the USP was started with the .40. It started with the .40 caliber, Smith & Wesson, and then they developed the 9 caliber, or rather the 9mm. And then after that, it kind of was the leeway for the H&K 45 and the Mark 23. The real biggest difference between the USP, and the Mark 23 is the decocking lever and the safety on the Mark 23 is separate. So you have a safety, and then you have your decocking lever forward. But other than that, it is very, very similar. This is the bitone version, but it's identical. I mean, it's just that it doesn't have the nitride finish. It was just available, and I bought it. I really liked it. This gun is for more or less stock the way I purchased it, with two exceptions. One, obviously, the Hogue overmold grip. I just liked it. I just didn't care for the stippling. But again, when you're wearing gloves, it's not a big issue. And I like the finger grips. Myself, that's a personal thing. Some folks can't stand it, and that's all well and good. The other thing I did was I put the Trijicon night sights. I really liked it, and they were available, and I put them on. And yeah, so other than that, it's a stock gun. It really fires very, very well. It's just a pleasure to shoot. It's a very accurate weapon at 15 meters. I'm getting very small groups, 4 to 5 inches, 45-inch groups. With practice, it's like anybody. Is this gun for everybody? Absolutely not. It's a very wide gun, as you can see on the handle. The Hogue overmold makes it even wider. But if you're just average even, or slightly large hands, you're going to have absolutely no issues with this weapon. It's just a pleasure to shoot. There is a little bit of difference in the recoil spring, and we'll get into that when we break it down. That helps with recoil. They claim 30% less recoil as a result of the dual spring recoil spring. I'm a self-loader, so for me, I can really put a lot of powder in my ammo, and I'll tell you, it can kick, or I can put very little, and you'll hardly notice it. So it's really about preference, and sometimes I think it's in your mind more than it is actually happening. So, what else can we say about the USP? Very solid, German engineering. It's expensive here in Canada, at least. I think all told, this cost me about $1,500. It is a pricey gun. I mean, you can get other guns, even hammer-fired weapons that in the .40 they're a lot less expensive. Glock, as an example, but it is a strike-fire weapon, the Glock, as is the MP, the XD by Springfield. I mean, I think even Caracal now from the United Arab Emirates. I don't know if they make a .40, but they do make it in a 9. All strike-fire weapons. They just a different philosophy, different type of gun, which is why law enforcement, I think, likes the strike-fire. Just they have the safeties in the trigger and in the slide, and it's just a quick draw and fire kind of weapon. Whereas this weapon is a little bit different philosophy, but still, when it's out of safety, I can pull the trigger and I can start from a decock position, or it can be cocked and then I can fire from that position. I can have it in safe in either location, and then but if I really don't like it, and that's the other thing too. Some folks, especially law enforcement, even down in the States, I know I've read a lot about it with the concealed and carry. They don't like the idea of a cocked hammer when they're concealing. They want to have it decocked safely. And even if it's in the fire position, they prefer that. Safety even as well. For example, my SIG, there is no safety. You just decock it. But, you know, just having just that, they feel much safer. Less chance of a misfire. One of the cons that I have of this weapon is its spur. This one in particular is made out of rubber. I'm not really clear as to why they did that. It does loosen off over time. This is the second hammer I've actually put into it. From what I understand, from what I've read about it, is that there was a concern that if it got dropped and it landed on a cock gun, that spur might cause a misfire. I can't imagine it. They've dropped it when they were testing this gun. They dropped it from a helicopter with it like this. They dropped it from 6 feet, I think, like something like 500 times without ever firing. I don't know if the engineers were just doing their due diligence or putting that extra, but if there's a con for this gun, for me it's this. I've heard some people have issue with the decock and safety in the same lever. Again, the Mark 23, it's separate. I never really had an issue, but in IPSC challenges, some folks, because they have it in a safety, and then when they go to draw, they draw their weapon, they go to fire or move it down to out of safe and into fire, and they find that they've pushed too hard and decock it. I don't know. You have to have a pretty good push, so I think it's just with a little bit of practice, I think you'll be fine. So for me, myself, it's not a con. And again, guns are kind of interesting. They're like girls, I suppose. They, not each one is made for each person. So, my suggestion to anybody that's interested in purchasing a firearm, do your research, go to your gun range. A lot of times they have loaner weapons that you can try out. It's worth buying a box of ammo. Talk to the guy next to you in the next stall. Most gun enthusiasts, such as myself, a complete stranger will walk up and ask me about a gun. I'll hand him a couple mags and say, yeah, have at her, man. Whatever you think. I'll even throw some paper up for you, because we're always trying to encourage folks to get involved in the sport. It's a fun, relaxing, healthy sport, and as long as we do it safely. So very quickly, let's just talk about stripping it down. So when you strip it down, obviously you make sure it's safe, which we did. There's nothing in the chamber. There's nothing in the gun. The H&K is actually quite simple. The USP. You just bring it to this mark on your slide, to where your slide holder is, and from the opposite side you push that pin. When you push it in, then it's just a matter of removing it and setting that aside, and then the slide will come right off. And that's really it. Once you've got that off, then that's your lower, your polymer side, and then your return spring, and then your barrel. One of the interesting things about the H&K was it has on each piece, it's the matching serial number, which I actually rather like. I did buy my SIG which was secondhand, and I found I know that the guy that I bought it off of had a couple of different SIGs. They're obviously the same model, and I really had a feeling that he was switching barrels and slides, and I'm not really clear as to why he was doing that. I think he personally watched too many old westerns when they were doing that. And it's just not the way the manufacturer intended it to go out the door. Some folks are just doing that. I know with the H&K, if I were to sell this, the person that's buying it knows they're getting each component from the manufacturer. There's no monkey business. This is the extra spring that I was describing inside the return spring. So you have your main return spring, and then you have the secondary spring, which basically puts a little extra added pressure on that washer that floats. Again, H&K claims that it reduces the recoil in the gun by 30%. Again, I have to agree with it because I don't know. I don't find that it shoots any harder or any less hard than any other 40 that I've shot. I do have friends with Glock 23s, and I don't know. Other than the Glock has a different canter, and it forces your wrist a little bit more forward, which I think is also another thing that the Glock likes in law enforcement likes about the Glock, is that immediately upon drawing, your hand is cocked forward, and it helps with recoil. I think that's the premise behind it. Some people call it the European canter. I don't know. It's the only gun that has it, and there are other guns that are built out of Europe, and they still have what we call the 1911 type configuration. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you can strip this down further if you like. There are a lot of videos on the YouTube, and we may even try to do that for you one day. Bit of a challenge. It's not the worst gun to take down further, but I mean, you may want to every couple of years really strip this down and give it a good parts wash and clean it all up, and get inside and get all the springs that are in there. But it's not bad. You take your time. One thing that I would suggest, if you are going to go that much further, to invest into a pin kit, or like a pin punch kit, something similar to this. You don't want to cheap out. You don't want to be using drill bits or some kind of a screwdriver thing like some folks. They may cheap out and try and use something like that and try and wiggle it through. Don't do that. If the gun is worth $1,500, even if it's worth $800, it doesn't matter. You want to respect it. This pin punch kit in Canada here costs me, I think, $30. $30, and it's pretty good quality. So you can get them at Canadian Tire or any tool company will have them. And yeah, that's the way you want to go. So that's pretty much it. So to put it back together, as you can see, I need to clean this a little bit because I have gone out and fired it, but. To put it back, it's just a reverse order. So you just slide the barrel in, lay it down, and then take your return spring. It will go in the front, and then slip that in like that. And you can see what happens is, I'll just maybe describe this really quickly before we finish up. But the barrel will float until it gets to the end, and it'll hook. And then that's what will hold on and pull that spring. And then that's what, when it gets to the end of its travel, that's what will slam forward and the slide. So that's kind of how that works. So we'll just put that back in. So yeah, a lot of people don't understand why sometimes when they're looking at a gun and they notice the barrel is sticking up, it's because the barrel is actually going underneath the slide. But when it gets back to its chambered area or chambered section of the slide, it's actually quite straight, and so there's no issue of a bullet going astray or anything like that. We'll just put that back in, and then of course, just to put it back on, just slide it over, bring it back to the spot where it is with that mark in the hole, and then we'll put our slide lever back in, and that's it. And that's basically all there is to it. And you can hold it open and have a look at it, whatever. And like I say, I like to decock it, leave it into safety, and that's how I like to do it. All right, and there's your magazine. Okay, well, thank you for watching, and take care.